Hello, everybody. Today I'm here talking with Nick Burchard. He is the director of The Ghost Light, which is a wonderful little film that we were able to pick up and watch down at FilmQuest. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Nick, and say, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your movie.
Yeah, of course. I'm Nick Burchard. I'm the writer, director, editor, storyboard guy for The Ghostlight. It's a coming of age, kind of kid-friendly fantasy horror film about this young actress who has the worst audition of her life at her, small town high school theater. And she winds up finding what's called the Ghostlight in her high school prop closet. And so she puts it out on stage, which is theater tradition, and she flicks it on, and she basically meets all of the ghosts that haunt her high school theater, and they kind of collaborate and find a way to help each other because the ghosts are all stuck there. They're stuck in this purgatory, which is called the ghost light, because they didn't do something that they should have done in their real life. So now they're stuck on the stage, and she's going to help them move on. And in return, they're going to help her nail her audition and get that call back. So that's
It's
the
great.
ghost light.
It's great stuff. Now, in this, there is quite a bit. There's some singing and dance and everything. So it's classified as a musical, along
Yep.
with having a little bit of a horror element, dealing with ghosts. So I want to ask, I know you're in New York area.
Mhm.
Was Broadway an impact on you for kind of developing this?
Absolutely. Of course. I mean, let's just say these aren't the only phantoms of the of the opera. Yeah, I mean, I love Broadway. I've always had a soft spot for it. And, I did high school theater. I was in all the plays. I played the Music Man. I played Nathan Detroit. We even did Amadeus. I played Salieri in high school, which was, I don't know how we did that, but we did. And so, and even before that, I was doing, Oliver. I was, doing tons of musicals, even regional as a kid. And I went to acting school and, I focused more on directing while I was in acting school. And so theater, acting, and directing, writing, it's all good to me. I'm trying to think of like what my favorite Broadway show would be. Um, I mean, yeah, it's probably something like Wicked or, Les Mis or Sondheim. I love Sweeney Todd. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Got to have a good
Do you
meet.
like
I'm sorry, what was that?
you like Broadway?
I like all sorts of stuff, and I do like musicals. In fact, recently my wife and I had the opportunity of going seeing Elf the musical,
Amazing.
and personally, I thought that was better than the movie.
Wow.
So, but that's
Really
that's some of my own personal preferences of styles. So,
cool. Very
so
cool.
kind of give you an idea there. So yeah, I think that's just really great. So it sounds like maybe with your background that some of what you're telling us in the Ghost Light is a little bit of personal history here, or
Oh
is
yeah.
there something? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you are your own inspiration for the story of this film.
Well, I wouldn't say it like that. I'm my own inspiration. Um, no, I think, we all pull from our own experiences, and the lead of the film, there's two leads. One of them, Winnie, played by the wonderful Regina Famatigan, and Esper, who is the ghost that is going to help her, played by, I mean, just he's a star, Ali Louis Borsky, and I grew up with Ali. So he went the theater route, I went the filmmaker route. And I mean, he's a genius performer, and so is Regina. And so I think to answer your question, this film has a female protagonist and it also has a male protagonist. So I look at it from how can I pull from my own experiences and tell this story in the most accurate and personal way. That way that, it becomes not only its own thing, but there's also, the most personal aspect of it, which, it always comes from the writer. But, to answer your question, how I write is I look at the characters, create their backstory, and then I basically just say to them, we were talking about D&D. I just say, what do you guys want to do? And I start asking them questions. And then the characters start telling me, well, okay, Winnie, I really want to get a callback. Okay, Winnie, you're not the best performer yet. So how are you going to do it? Esper, I want to move on. Okay, wow, you guys could really work together, kind of thing. And then, of course, you start pulling from your own experiences. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean it did. I mean you're pulling from your own experiences. You're kind of taking the events you grew up with and some other creative aspects. So in terms of the ghost light, it's always kind of fun to talk to directors as they're putting it together. There's usually like one spot in the film they went, that just was so good. And I know we kind of talked a little bit about this when you're answering questions at FilmQuest. So I'd like to kind of get back to that. What was the one time that you went, that just worked out totally not as we expected, but was so good?
Totally not as we expected, but it was so good. I mean, I was terrified of making this musical number. Like I said, I've been in plays before, and I always look at the director for the guidance. It's like, how do you come up with a musical number? And it kind of comes to that thing where you really have to rely on the people around you. So, we casted the right actors for this. Like I said, Ali is a wonderful stage actor, and so is Regina. But we used a lovely choreographer, Sarah Koviak, who was actually my dance teacher in college. So it was very serendipitous. I was like, "Hey, would you maybe want to do a film?" And she was like, "Yes, I do. In fact, want to choreograph your film." And so, yeah, I was terrified up until the shoot. We opted to go handheld instead of Steadicam on that, and we set the camera up on a track, and we were kind of moving back and forth. And I wrote that song with my childhood friend Jacob Keplinger, who's in a fantastic band, Free Rock, and it just came together. And honestly, now I can say I'm a songwriter. So
So the point that I was going to try to get to, and so I'll drop a
sure.
reminder, was the closing scene with the curtain.
Mhm. Okay, the
Now,
curtain. So yeah, I know what you're getting at. Spoilers?
I don't think it's so much of a spoiler. I mean, we kind of given away that there's ghosts there and everything.
Mhm.
So,
So there was a bit of a moment that wound up being kind of interesting for the short film. Now I've got a feature script written, so it retcons this a little bit. So not so much of a spoiler anymore. But so it's a we we actually had a continuity error where the ghost light was supposed to be off and the curtain was supposed to be down, or the curtain was supposed to be up and the ghost light was supposed to be off, and the stage is clear and the ghosts aren't there anymore right at the last beat of the song to basically say, oh wow, the ghost just disappeared at the end, when the theater teacher comes back in and they're all hidden. And what happened was we actually had the curtain down, and because we shot it well before we shot the musical number, and the ghost light was turned on. And it wasn't until I was looking at the dailies, you know, 3 days later after the shoot, where I realized, oh crap, that's not telling the story. So I rang up my producer Ed and I said, what do we do? And he goes, oh, easy. It was all in her head. And I'm like, okay, sure. That works for me. So again, I like that answer and I also don't like that answer because I'm not super into like the whole Wizard of Oz where it was like all a dream, Dorothy and stuff. I tend to like to, make decisions and it's like this is the lore of the piece. But in those aspects, when it's like, how do you explain the ghost light being on, but the ghost's not there? It's like, well, maybe it was all in her head. Maybe.
I think it works really good for the short. And I think
Yes,
that's the
absolutely.
reason why I said that is it works really good there. Now you're saying that you have a feature written
Yep.
for this concept. So,
Yes.
I take do you have production coming together on that, or is that something you're now looking for?
Well, we're always looking. We're always looking for new opportunities, especially in the independent field. But I've had some pretty interesting connections come up for the Ghostlight feature, and it's currently in the development process. So we have some companies taking a look at it, and fingers crossed. It all came out of FilmQuest. Let's just say that. So
Yeah, good for them. good for you. I mean, that's some good stuff because that is a great short film, and I can see where the premise of building the characters, bringing more of the backstory and all the way around could be really a lot of fun.
Thank
Um,
you.
so, we're talking about that. So we already know you got maybe that in the works. Do you have other items that you've got in the works that we might be able to look forward to?
I mean, if we can't get the Ghostlight feature done, then I'm likely going to start developing another short, which is I'm a comic book artist. I'm gonna show you this right here. So this script was actually at the Film Quest this year. It was one of the shorts screenplays. So I adapted my comic book right here, which is this vampire biker, really, really fun and campy story. And I've had this story for a very long time. And so, yeah, I'm always working on stuff. I've got a web comic, Vulture Culture, which is about these goth birds who love Kiss. And that's kind of enough said on that. It's every Tuesday on my Instagram, Tiny Viking
Okay.
Designs. Go see for yourself. You wanted the best, you got the rest.
So Tiny Viking on, you said which one?
On Instagram,
On Instagram. Okay.
Tiny Viking Designs.
Designs.
Yep.
Writing that down so we can make sure that we can add that in.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. Insta. All right. So it sounds like you've got, some other things that you're working on, but it sounds like you've got outside of film, you've got a
Mhm.
bunch of other things you like to do. But we're going to get to
Absolutely.
that in a little bit because I still want to kind of touch base on with, the ghost light. So
Sure.
I'm willing to bet that what you've done with your comic books and like you're saying that and some of the other really influenced your development of your story of the ghost light. Can you tell us some of the crossover, the process that you used? Because I'm sure if you're doing comics, you must really do a lot of storyboarding.
Absolutely. Let me try to phrase this. Um, yeah, so I have this kind of mantra that I say to other filmmakers when I'm like applying to, storyboard jobs and things like that, especially with the more independent guys. I said this probably 30 times at Film Quest when people were asking about my comics and other film festivals and things like that, is I say, my process is if I can draw the film, I can make the film. So storyboarding is a gigantic process for me. In fact, I shot list after I storyboard. And then I put the little icon of the storyboard next to the shot list so I can hand that off to the DP and explain it in words that, they can understand, where it's like we boom up here instead of just like here's a static shot of a character standing there. But yeah, I definitely use my comic book history in storyboard everything. So it works for some people like me. It doesn't work for other people, and we all find our process. But yeah, if I can draw the movie, I can make the movie. So,
So you're doing comics, you've written now a song. I got to ask then, I mean, for all of this, what type of influence were your creative, just general artistic influences that just kind of pushed you into saying, I've got to create?
I mean, every director I worked with, every person that I met, my parents, I think a lot of the times people, they're creative despite their parents. I'm creative for my parents. They love my work, and it's very, very encouraging. And I just go at it from excitement. Like I was saying, my best friend Jacob Keplinger, who is in the band, and he helped me write this song. Couldn't have written a song without him, and his influence on me. Like we grew up together, and we were always pushing each other. He was always doing music, I was always making movies, and I think if we want to talk actual influences on the project itself,
Okay.
Tim Burton's one of my favorite directors. The Shining is my favorite movie of all time. So we shot this film in a very liminal way, similarly to the way that Kubrick did it. We really wanted to get a steady cam, but we had some budget issues with that. So we opted for we'll put it on a dolly and we'll float. So, Kubrick is seriously one of my influences. And, one of the questions that I had throughout the storyboarding process was, how am I going to make these ghosts look. And so in a lot of ways, I leaned on Kubrick, and he has this lovely quote about ghosts on film, and he says, ghosts appear as they do to anybody else, just a person. Like, they're not see-through, they're not wearing sheets, they're just people. And ghosts in a lot of ways are shells of themselves, and they're hung onto the past, and they I just thought, wow, what a beautiful metaphor for actors. Like, what a great way, because actors pull from their past in order to project as a ghost would into, a new scene, a new character. And what a great way for ghosts to appear on a theater as people who are stuck in the past, and they use their past in order to fix the mistakes of their past and move on. Very ethereal way of saying it, but so in terms of visual stances, I was very influenced by Batman Returns, Tim Burton's Batman Returns, specifically with the way that he did the ghosts. And were you at Film Quest last year,
Yes, I was.
Dan? Did you
Yeah.
see Moon Garden?
Yes.
That movie blew my mind. And the way that they depict, I don't even know if they're ghosts, but the way they depict the people in that film, who are in like the Alice in Wonderland aspect of it, where they're like crusty and they've got like white paint all over them and their hair is very dusty. And I think that that's a very, very good thing with ghosts, is ghosts should be dusty. They're they're old. They've been around collecting dust. Ghosts should be dusty on a very, literal level. So, the makeup artist Christina Long was just brilliant with that. We used a lot of baby powder. A lot of baby powder. So
Okay.
I'm just rambling at this point.
No,
So
that's good stuff. I mean, I agree with you. There's a reason why, the Moon Guard took so many awards last year.
God, that movie's
Yeah.
brilliant.
And
Rest in
that was a
peace.
major loss this year with the one gentleman that passed away that was tied to that.
I it was one of the very, very rare opportunities, and I'll just talk about this briefly, because I only met him once, but he was getting breakfast the very next day after we were all leaving that day, and I got to see John, and I hadn't met him before, and I just had to say, man, your movie touched me on a way that, on a personal level, that I wouldn't say to anybody else. And I had a lot of questions for him, and he was just so generous with his time while he was eating breakfast. And yeah, that affected me a lot. I was a big fan of his, and gone too soon,
Yep.
you know.
I'll admit I collect hats. And so we
Yeah.
connected on the hats we were wearing.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. His red glasses were so iconic. What a
Yep.
great guy. So nice.
Yep.
You know?
Okay. So off from the sad stuff.
Yes, of course. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, because like you're saying, this is a good influence. So it lets people know right there that you're giving us some great examples of what influenced your work. So if people have the chance of seeing the Moon Gardener, some of the aspects of The Shining, some of the aspects of The Dark Knight, these are things that you brought forward into your film
Yeah,
to
of
kind of
course.
to help tell your story. So I mean, it's a great comparison to people go, oh, wait a minute, I like that, so let's go check this out. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the
that's
reason
one of
I
my
asked
favorite
that.
things. That's one of my favorite things, is to put together the lookbook and the pitch deck, and just to show all these, beautiful, it's so cringy, but I think even Twilight wound up in my lookbook, like, because the vampires are so beautiful and yet they're so pale, and I'm like, I don't want these ghosts to be scary, as I want them to be beautiful but in a haunting way, so
Mhm.
yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the pre-production, is putting together that lookbook.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it sounds like you do a lot of visual items there. So throughout the whole
absolutely.
process. So it's pretty good stuff there.
Thank you.
So let's kind of go on some personal stuff. I mean, you've already told us what influenced you in terms of your, like, probably your favorite Broadway play being Wicked, your favorite movies and directors. I mean, you've already taken some of my questions and answered them before I ever ask. So I usually ask, like, what was the influences? But one
Sorry.
thing, being a creative myself and working with a lot of creatives, it's How, what do you do, Nick, to maintain that energy of creativity? What are the things that you do sometimes breaking away from the film, away from the art, that then comes back to influence you to help you keep motivated?
Hmm. Wow, what a great question. I mean, I think I think everybody's got to have something that they do apart from the art that they create. And, I don't want to be the guy that says, well, when I'm not making comics, I read comics, or when I'm not watching, or when I'm not making movies, I watch movies. I think that the only thing that's really separate from like the main forces in my life is I go to a lot of death metal concerts.
That's one
I
reason why we're
love
actually filming today.
Yes, yes, oh my God, Kiss was so amazing. Yeah, so this is gonna put a date on this, but I went to the very last Kiss show at Madison Square Garden last. Um and those guys, the theatrics they put on is just like so inspiring, and after I left that show, the only thing I wanted to do was draw Kiss. And like how has this not, like, they made one movie, Phantom of the Park. I mean, they've showed up in other ones, but I'm like, how has Kiss not, like, how have they not like Gene, how has Gene not franchised Kiss out to be like a Marvel level movie with all their characters they've created? It's a really, really interesting lore, and you can see it on stage. It's like Gene spitting blood. It's like, that's not Gene, that's the demon spitting blood. And it's so beautiful, and Paul flies and all of that stuff. But yeah, I go to a lot of metal shows. My Chemical Romance is my favorite band of all time, and clearly Black Parade is an influence on this film. So yeah, I just love life and all of that stuff. And I mean, I don't want to say hiking, but I love hiking too.
That's getting out in nature is a great thing.
Mhm.
Living here in Utah, we do a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to bet then we probably will see some aspects of the Kiss concert in your Vulture Culture comic.
Bro, it already happened. Let me show you this. Gene will sue me, but let me show you. Yeah, so literally the first comic that I ever did, they're at a record store, and the last line Gene says is well, he's literally named Gene, so if that tells you anything, he says he's at a record store and he's like not loving what they have, and then he just goes, "Do you have any Kiss?" And then there's sorry, I'm doing this so then I mean Avril as a kid says, "Daddy, Daddy, do my makeup." And he's a single father. And he goes, "Okay, what kind of makeup do you want, kiddo? You want the Catman, Spaceman, Demon, Star Child?" And she goes, "I want the kitty." And he goes, "Okay, Chris or Singer." And then it cuts to then it cuts to her with the makeup on. So yeah, that was a fun one. I love that one. Don't sue me, Gene, please.
No, I think that's a great homage to just what it's all about. So
Yeah.
now we got that type of what inspires you now to keep going. Um, we know what you're kind of looking at maybe in the future. So let me ask a little bit different. If you had someone come to you and say, "Look, I want to become a filmmaker," what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so uh we've been talking a lot about Film Quest on this one, and I want to, shout out the other festival that we played at that
Yeah,
meant a
go
lot to
for it.
me.
Yeah.
Smodcastle Cinema. So I mentioned Kevin Smith before. I'm a really, really big fan of Kevin Smith's. And so we got into the second annual Smodcastle, and we were the first of the shorts blocks that played. So we pretty much opened the festival with Ghostlight. And I didn't even know this was going to happen, but Kevin came out and pretty much introduced the whole festival, and he said, "So we got the first block up here. Guys, come on up. I'm going to read your film name. Come on up if you're a part of it, and get on up here and let's chat for a bit." So we kind of did like a panel before the festival started with the people in this one block. It was very, very surreal. And so he asked a similar question, and it was like, so what advice would you, everybody here, is a filmmaker or probably wants to be a filmmaker. What advice would you give to them? Because you're here now. And it got to me, and I'm 25, so I don't have a whole lot of life experience. I'm only a quarter through, hopefully, fingers crossed. Um, and so I looked at Kevin and I kind of just thought in my head, like, well, okay, well, what's the best advice I've ever been given? And the best advice I've ever heard is from Neil Gaiman, which is, on your good days, make great art. On your bad days, make great art. On your okay days, make great art. If your cat explodes, make good art. And I kind of added to that because, a lot of people say, like, oh, it's been done before, it's been done before, and not by you. And so if you find something inspiring, make great art, because we need more of it. We're never going to run out of it. And that's really the only advice that I think I could give now, is surround yourself with great people and make great art.
Okay. So you mentioned that film festival, and we know it showed at FilmQuest. What's in store right now for the Ghost Light? Is it still on the festival circuit?
Yeah.
Where might people get a chance to see it?
So right now we're screening virtually at Shockfest Film Festival, which they're doing a live screening December 9th in New York City. I don't know if Ghostlight is screening at that one. I think we're just virtual in this one, particular one. And we've got lots of film festivals that we're awaiting on. So yeah. Right now we're kind of just waiting on a lot of the ones for next year. We'll get through the holidays and things like that. But right now you can see us virtually on Shockfest.
Okay. And if they're can't make Shockfest, where can they maybe follow you to find out some of the dates as they get announced?
Of course. So people can follow me, Tiny Nick _ on Instagram. They can, see the trailer there. They can see the trailer on YouTube. They can go to my website, tinyvikingproductions.com. And yeah, just Google The Ghostlight. You'll find it, or you'll find like 10 other movies that have that same title.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will.
I
Yeah.
always have to kind of look up, to get pictures for the articles I write. And then I was like, oh, okay, let's make sure we narrow it down to the right year.
Yeah, there was also I get reminded of this practically daily when people discover our trailer, is they go, "Oh man, this is like that Cars short film, Mater and the Ghost Light," because there are ghost lights in theater, and then there are ghost lights, they're like UFOs that come out in the desert and stuff. So no, I was not influenced by Mater when I made this movie.
No, I didn't see that influence in there.
Get her done.
No, there's, but okay, so there looks like probably next year, and I'm willing to bet, I think, in my opinion, you'll probably get a very good festival run.
I hope so.
So have you already started looking at possible other distribution avenues, or have you been approached? Is anything along those lines coming up?
I mean, I've submitted to both Alter and Dust. I feel like it's every filmmaker's dream to wind up on Alter and Dust with a short film. But the main thing with a short film is to get that feature made. So right now I'm actively looking for anybody who wants to take a look at the feature script, and let's make a great, kid-friendly horror movie, because nobody makes those anymore.
Yeah, we don't get too many
Goosebumps can't
Goosebumps
be the
stories.
only one. Goosebumps can't be the only one. We need more of it, because that's what's going to make new horror films, is, people who watch films that have a Tim Burton vibe, that have a Stanley Kubrick vibe for kids, because then they're gonna, someday watch The Shining and go, oh man, that kind of looks like Ghostlight, or oh, that kind of looks like this, and wow, I should really watch the greatest horror movie ever made, The Shining. So yeah, that's my pitch right there. Let's make more, let's make new horror films. Yep.
Okay. So we got that. So I will put this out because I know I have a lot of writers that watch. If you're looking to make new horror films, I usually don't ask this question, but since the way you put this, if you knew of somebody else that has a really good story, would you be interested in taking a look at that?
Oh, of course.
Because I actually know several people that write young adult horror, and
Let's
specifically in that. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, when I lived in LA, I did development work for people for production companies. So I was reading scripts all the time, making pitch decks. So I'm the way I say it is, put me to work, you know, hit me up.
Okay. So we've been going about a half an hour now.
Great.
And I think we've pretty much covered the film. We've covered information about you. But as we kind of wrap things up, is there anything that last words you'd like to share with
Play
anybody out
D&D.
there? Play D&D?
Yep, play D&D. Meet writers because and just again make great art because the world needs it.
You want to expand on the play D&D? Because I know we were talking about that before we started recording. So maybe.
Sure. Yeah, so you should follow Guildmaster Gaming. Uh, and you should get involved in a D&D group because they are the most creative people and they are the most welcoming people that you will ever find. And you will come out with a story. Did that answer your question?
I think so. Because what we were talking about is finding those, and that's a way to hook up with creatives. But I'm going to kind of
Mhm.
broaden it out. Don't
Please.
limit yourself to D&D. Because I will, in my honest opinion, D&D is very much a nice strategy game because that's the way the combat all works. There's some great narrative stories out there, RPGs. So find what you want to do. If you want to do horror, there are some great horror games out there. Besides Vampire the Masquerade, uh, that's one. Call of Cthulhu, uh, Tiny Cthulhu. There's some really good ones out there. So I'll go along with you. Find something and hook up with people that will help you create the art that you want to create. And that's, like you said, there's some great stories that come out. I've actually read a number of books that the authors, after talking to them, and say, oh, the whole premise of this started with my D&D campaign or
Yep.
some other campaign. And I know Brandon Sanderson, who has done a lot of stuff. One of the things he used to do is he would come up with an idea and he'd run it past his gaming group in an adventure. And if
Yep.
it worked there, then he would rework it for his book.
Amazing. And I would also, because what you just said inspired me to say something else. I would also say that, especially because short films have some stigma around them. A lot of the times when I go to make a short film, people go, okay, but why? Why not just make a big film? And it's like, well, it's expensive. And what are you going to do with it? And that sort of thing. And it's like, well, it might live on YouTube and that'll be great. And I think same thing with independent comics and independent music and independent art. It's like there is a treasure trove of incredible artists out there, especially with the internet nowadays. You will find some amazing art. So don't just look at the big names. Take a look at the smaller guys because they're the ones who are going to be the big names next time. So,
And I will kind of throw this out. They talk about it in writing. Writing a short story, people are the same thing. It's like, oh, you can't make a living at writing short stories. You can, but it's a little bit different lifestyle,
Sure.
like I say. But at the same point, just like in a short film and a short story, you can try things out and be that independent mind, that independent voice, or come out with an idea that just makes people go, wait a minute, that you can't always do in a feature film until you get people understanding it can be done.
Absolutely. Yep.
So yeah,
People always say a short film is a great is an expensive business card. And I think it's a little more than that. I think it's the most personal story that you can tell.
yeah, it's great stuff.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
just as a reminder, everybody, I will be writing up a review of the Ghostlight that Nick Burchard has so graciously given us out in the theaters now. So I will be interlinking the two of them there. I've taken notes on some of the stuff and we'll go back through it and we'll pull out some information of where you can find out more information about Nick and the Ghostlight, and we'll link that all together so that when it goes published, you'll have it all at one point. Nick, I want to thank you again for joining me. I think this has been a great conversation. And I know when we were talking about game before, like I said, I could when we get into the gaming, the artistic side of things, comic books, games, all of it, I could talk for hours on that. So I think we did great by kind of bracketing
Uh,
ourselves in.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much, Daniel. This was wonderful.
Okay, have a great day.
You as well.